Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we'll be reviewing the new HBO series, The Young Pope. This series is about the first American Pope. He's 47 years old. And as the formal Lenny Belardo, takes the name of Pope Pius XIII. So the way HBO seems to market this is as a type of new Game of Thrones series in that time slot. So, I don't know about all that, but the show does seem to feature a lot of plotting and scheming. So we'll just jump right into it. So we open up with this very odd dream sequence, and it's Lenny Belardo, or Pope Pius XIII, and he's crawling over this river of bed of it appears to be dead babies. Or I don't know if they're dead or alive. My guess is that they are dead babies. So in this dream, he's talking about abortion should be viewed as okay, sexual immorality should be fine, same-sex marriages should be okay. So, during this speech that he's having in this dream, we're led to believe that he's a very liberal pope, to say the least. However, he's basically, as he awakens from the dream, we discover he's not exactly liberal. In fact, he seems to be more conservative, or one of the most conservative popes. So it does seem a bit confusing at this point, as how he's presented in the trailers. He seems to be quite liberal. So in the next scene, we get him at breakfast. This seems to be the first, his first day as Pope. They have this large breakfast banquet, as he arrives, and he's basically telling them that, hey, I don't eat breakfast. Only thing I have is a zero Pepsi for breakfast. And it's strange because how he functions, is just, it's very robotic, and his speech is very emotionalist, and how he maneuvers, it's all very calculating and optimal and efficient. So an elderly cook, who served a few popes before him, is introduced, and she's treating him, almost like a child. She's like, tell me what you like me to serve you, and this and that, and, pulling on his cheeks. And so she's very familiar with him. So in this very interesting scene, he really just slams her and puts her in her place, and about how much, about how she's too familiar and that she needs to stop. And so she's very embarrassed, and as I said, he operates almost like a machine. There's no heartfelt emotional responses from his character. Very contradictory. Being a pope and all. So it moves on, and he's expecting a guest, and basically he's waiting outside near a helipad, for this guest to arrive. So we find out that the guest is a character played by Diane Keaton, named Sister Mary. So we get this flashback sequence, and we find out that as a small boy, he's arriving at an orphanage, and he greets Sister Mary as mom. However, she tells him, don't ever call me that again. And, that for now on, he should call her Sister Mary. So right there, we find out Sister Mary is not only his mother, but she, at some point, had to break her vows as a nun, and is now keeping it hid, as she is actually his mother. So they go into a staff meeting involving his Secretary of State, because the Vatican is actually a sovereign country, basically. So they're totally independent and have, their own guard called the Swiss Guard. And so the Pope has his own Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State is known by the name of Cardinal Voiello. So, as this is his first day as Pope, basically, no one has actually seen him yet. So the meeting is about his first address to the world. So Cardinal Voiello is concerned about appointments and the address and wants to take care of everything. So what you get right away is that Cardinal Voiello is basically trying to run the Vatican and push the Pope to the side as more of a puppet type ruler. And he's using these subtle statements as to suggest the type of issues he will encounter if he does not comply with that. However, he basically checks him, or the Pope basically checks him by making him go get him coffee. So the Secretary of State, he first tries to get somebody else to get it, but the Pope stops him and goes, no, you get it. So this is part of politics to show strength and power, and, basically I'm in charge. So the Cardinal gets the message quite fast, and he appoints his mother or Sister Mary as a special assistant to the Pope, which is not standard procedure. So he breaks that rule. But he also breaks the rule of smoking in the papal residence. And checks Cardinal Voiello on, hey, I'm the new Pope. Basically, I can do whatever I want, So we get this interesting scene where he, even as the Pope, has to confess his sins at confessional, However, he tells the priest, who's known as Don Tommaso, that he has no sins to confess. So at this point, in the series, you really are having trouble figuring out the intentions of this Pope. Is he a reformist? Is he a conservative Pope? Is he a liberal Pope? He basically states that he's a contradiction. And it seemingly is that he is exactly that. However, you also get that he does mean to clean out the church and can't be bought from the corruption and plotting and everything going on in his papacy. So Cardinal Voiello is planning to have him investigated every move. So again, it's a lot of plotting and scheming and the politics, of what's going on in his papacy, and it's very complex. And they wish to control him at every turn if possible. So basically they make the mistake or they make this assumption that they can. However, they are finding out that he's not going to be as easy as they once thought. So after the Pope's confessional, he basically tells the priest he wants him to report to him everything that the other priests confess because he wants to know who's plotting and scheming. And the priest is just in total shock. He's like, because he's saying, hey, God will punish me. I can't tell you other people's confessionals under God. And the Pope basically persuades him not only in a spiritual sense by saying things like, hey, I'm on God's side. And by doing this, you're serving the church. But he also basically bribes him with a cardinal position, So again, the contradictions come. And and the priest, he basically caves. He tells him all the confessionals, and now the Pope basically knows how to maneuver against all the other cardinals, So finally, the Pope tells the priest, okay, I'm ready now to confess my sins, and wants to have their, I forget what they call it, but it's when they go, when they go into the confessional. So he tells the priest, he says, well, I don't believe in God. So the priest is just devastated, a Pope that doesn't believe in God, and he's like, this can't be, and what will happen now? So, he's really breaking down, and so the Pope then goes, oh, I was just kidding, and, he has this uncomfortable look, the Pope does, after he says that, and the episode comes to an end. So, I can already see this series, as I said in my trailer review, is going to be very controversial. And, usually at this point, I give some predictions, but unfortunately, this series was released overseas last year, and it received critical acclaim. It wasn't released in America, But unfortunately, they had been posting clips of the series online, and I mistakenly thought it was one of the trailer clips, and I watched it only to discover they had posted episodes of the actual series or future episodes. So I was very disappointed in that, as I wanted to be surprised on some of the things that would happen. So I can't, some predictions I can't give because some of the information I already have, and I want to go along with the rest of you and discover things at the same rate. So when I discovered this future clip with this important information, I did stop watching it, but I had already seen some future details and some things that made sense to me that I can't divulge at this at this point until all the episodes here in America catch up. However, I will say this from what I saw. This is going to be a really good show. The acting and the storyline is off the scale. So if you're watching this show, keep watching. You will be impressed. So I do have some future spoilers, but again, I will make sure I don't spoil the show. But there are still many things as well I don't know. And for instance, I don't know if he really believes in God or not. And one prediction I guess I could make, or what I want to say is, I do believe he's going to end up being a good pope. But I think he's doing unorthodox things to clean out the church. And I think it's one of those situations where he feels he can only fight the level of corruption that is present with a similar offensive. In this way, it does remind me of Game of Thrones, because in Game of Thrones, we noticed that everyone who tried to fight back honorably and noble, they were eventually and generally fairly, they came to an end, quite quickly. So this Pope, I think, knows that if he tries that way, that they will consume and destroy him. As they're basically portrayed as a den of vipers in this series. So I think the idea is he's going to use similar methods to oust them out. So, controversial but interesting series, and this series won't be for everybody, and it's a bit uncomfortable in some ways to review it due to, I understand it may be offensive to some Catholics that watch the series. So I've heard some Catholics say they think it's totally fine and it's just a fictitious show. However, whatever your position, I understand it and I respect that. And I can only say that this series, from what I've seen and understood, is not going to be exactly what we think it is. So anyway, guys, stay tuned if you're watching and found this first episode interesting. We'll explore some more to see how the show goes. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care, guys.